Hey everyone, it's Pastor Scott Fielder, and welcome to another edition of Hope Lutheran Church in Hollywood's online midweek devotional. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Please make sure to subscribe so that you get notifications about not only when our midweek Wednesday devotional goes live, but also our weekly online Sunday service as well. Our reading for this week comes from the book of 2 Kings, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Now when the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven by a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way to Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me as far as Bethel." But Elisha said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. The company of prophets who were in Bethel came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he said, "Yes, I know. Keep silent." Elijah said to him, "Elisha, stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho. The company of prophets who were at Jericho drew near to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that today the Lord will take your master away from you?" And he answered, "Yes, I know. Be silent." Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jordan." But he said, "As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. 50 men of the company of prophets also went and stood at some distance from them, as they both were standing by the Jordan. Then Elijah took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water. The water was parted to the one side and to the other, until the two of them crossed on dry ground. When they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "Tell me what I may do for you before I am taken from you." Elisha said, "Let me inherit a double share of your spirit." He responded, "You have asked a hard thing. Yet, if you see me as I am being taken from you, it will be granted you. If not, it will not." As they continued walking and talking, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them, and Elijah ascended in a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha kept watching and crying out, "Father, Father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen." But when he could no longer see him, he grasped his own clothes and tore them in two pieces. Here ends the reading. In 1985, the Washington football team was playing the New York Giants, and Joe Theismann suffered one of the worst injuries we have seen take place on a football field. Lawrence Taylor, one of the most prolific defenders of that era, sacked Joe Theismann from his blind side, with the result being a compound fracture of multiple bones in his leg. Joe just never saw it coming. And I'm sure you can recall the last time something like this has happened to you. Maybe not an NFL linebacker tackling you, maybe even not something physical happening to you, but maybe in the form of bad news or, some sort of sadness or grief that you almost immediately felt without knowing that it's coming. You realize the reality that you now live in has changed, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. The next thing we usually think about or wonder is what the consequences of this news are going to be, and what, if anything, can we do about it? We see in our 2 Kings story that soon Elijah will be taken up to heaven via a whirlwind, and Elijah, knowing this, explains to his fellow prophet Elisha that this is going to take place soon, and that he must go on ahead, and Elisha refuses to leave his side. Then even those who are in their company, as they move from town to town, they are confused by this. They implore Elisha, repeating that Elijah will be taken up by a whirlwind, and Elisha responds in a continually similar fashion, refusing to leave Elijah, and this continues, as I said, from place to place. Even though Elisha knows a difficult thing is approaching, the choice is to see it through to the end. And when the time finally comes, even though all that Elisha had heard is that Elijah will be taken away, his response is one of great lament and great despair, tearing his clothes to pieces. This is a reminder that whether or not something blindsides you and hits you like a ton of bricks, or maybe you receive some news that takes a little bit of time to come to fruition, maybe a diagnosis of some kind that will have consequences later down the road, it can still be just as painful, even if at every step someone is saying, "You know this is going to happen, right?" Because we do not always know for sure when that time comes. And in either scenario, whether we know or can see it coming or whether we don't, our reality is still changed, and that can be painful. I see this story of Elisha as a reminder that whatever reason, we may think of, maybe to not grieve or to not be sad when something terrible happens, is maybe sometimes not a great reason to not do those things. We need to be able to express these emotions. We need to hold space for others when they maybe need to do the same, and we need to be aware of when maybe we need to be providing that space. But we must also remember that the one thing that we can count on is that God is there with us through the good, through the bad. And our call is still the same, to walk alongside one another, just like Elisha does with Elijah, all the way up until the end. Even though he knew it was going to be difficult, even though he knew it would be painful so much that I think that's why he asked everyone to be silent. I think that was his way of, I get it, but can you just stop talking about it? But one thing that he knew, and one thing that we all know, is that during those difficult times, during the times of pain, the times of hurt, and the times of grief, God is with us. Amen.